Guys, we're gonna be checking out how Emia beat Heracles 6 times in a row. I've seen so many videos talking about how Emia beat Heracles, but never really asked how he beat Heracles. I mean, I got summaries here and there, but more so is just, yeah, he just beat him. Okay, how? And Tsiah, the GOAT, is gonna go into depth on how he was able to beat one of the strongest fate servants to ever exist. So let's do it.
One of the most defining moments for Emia, and one that showed just how truly skilled he is the fight that he had against Heracles in the Fate route. In the scene, you have us trying to escape him, and Emia stands in front of us and says that he's gonna be the one to hold it down while we make a run for it. But what we find out later is that not only did Emia hold Heracles back, but he was able to take him down 6 times in a row. He took 6 of Heracles' lives before Heracles was finally able to get him down. Unfortunately,
that's legitimately insane. Berserker Heracles, probably one of the physically strongest servants to ever exist, right? He's a legitimate beast. It's like Hawkeye being able to take out the Hulk 6 times.
In this scene, Nasu hit us with the ultimate blue ball, so we never actually got to see the fight because all of it was held off screen. The closest that we've gotten to this is the filler content that's in Dean's adaptation, so that's what we're going to get into.
Why are we showing Fate Grand Order?
I kind of want to start some segments where
gotta get some
we go
B-roll,
over
I guess.
all the things that we didn't see, and this is one of
Goated
the
story, by the way. Goated story, by the way. I love Camelot's storyline.
main ones. There's been a bunch of theories floating around on how he was able to pull this off for years, and we're gonna try to get down to the bottom of it. But in order to do that, we gotta examine both of their fighting styles, mostly Emia, to even be able to.
That is not, guys. Did he get the wrong B-roll? This is Grand Order Solomon.
Come to that conclusion.
Oh my gosh, this would have been bad spoilers if I hadn't watched the movie already.
Now, we all know that the biggest wall here is Heracles' noble phantasm, Godhand, which allows him to resurrect 12 times in a row. And not only that, but it also has multiple conditions
hella
on top
spoilers
of that,
here,
which makes it increasingly more difficult. On top of the 12 lives, he has to be taken out with the phantasm that's at least A rank, hitting him with A rank strength, or having an A rank magic based attack. And that's just the first one. 2, he can't be taken down the same way more than once, and he builds up a resistance to any attack that he has taken. We'll go into the one that's the most obvious, and I feel like there's a caveat to this that people often misunderstand, and that is that he can't be taken down the same way twice. The implication would lead you to believe that he can't be taken down by the same phantasm twice, but that's not what it's saying at all. In fact, the fight with Salter is a great example for this. Remember, Salter only had one weapon. She was using her Excalibur Morgan the whole time. If that was really true, then she wouldn't be able to take multiple of Heracles' lives with one weapon, but just in different ways. And I know people are gonna immediately come out the wetworks to say, well, that didn't happen in the VN. Here's the thing about that. It's not that it didn't happen in the VN. We know that they fought. It's that it wasn't elaborated how they fought in the VN. It's just to say that we lack the context and the adaptations expand.
Oh, but you have to read the visual novel. All the details are there. What details? I'm just rage baiting you guys.
Upon the scene. All we knew was that Salter fought Heracles initially, she took some of his lives, and then he got possessed by the shadow. But looking at the fight that he had with Salter, we know there's a time where she straight up sliced him through the chest and ended up hitting his heart. You have the time where she hits him with an Excalibur blast.
I actually did a little bit of research on this fight, right? I actually did a little bit of research on this fight, and I saw other people react to this Heaven's Feel fight between Salter and Heracles. Like the way the movie portrayed it, it looked like he did no damage. It looked like he was doing no damage. It looked like he was doing all this really cool Hulk smash things with her taking minimal, if not any damage. But I actually looked it up online, and the truth of the fight, of this actual fight, at least in the original source material, is she was taking a lot of damage, but then she just kept healing, right? She just kept healing, and her regenerative abilities are really good. That's why she was able to keep fighting him despite getting whopped. So it was a lot more evenly matched in the original source material. So as far as what I've read online, Heaven's Feel, I think this fight still looks really good, right? Still one of the best fights to ever come out, like objectively wise, but you know, narratively wise, it's not the most accurate. Then again, you probably could say that for a lot of Fate fights.
Radiation from the blast is so strong that it just flat out incinerated his entire body. And then you have another where instead of doing the actual blast, she pulls the same technique that she used against Gil in the Fate route, where she just harnesses the energy into an attack and she chops straight through Heracles that way. This also explains why Shiro didn't have to take so many lives when he met up with Heracles, because she had...
Is Shiro in the room with us? Was it?
Shiro didn't have to take so many lives.
Is that supposed to be Shiro?
When he
okay, I will stop harping on him, bro. He's just trying to find some good B-roll, bro. I don't blame him. Last time I make a joke about that.
Took so many already. Again, we know that Caliburn can take 7 of Heracles' lives in one strike, and Excalibur Morgan is infinitely stronger than Caliburn.
Infinitely?
So there's many different ways to get around this, just to let that be known. But the main problem is most people don't have those resources anyway. Realistically, most people can only go for his head and his heart. That's a realistic situation. You could reach and say that you could go for his vitals, his main arteries, and he bleeds out, but that's not realistically gonna happen. And we've been through this quite a bit in the Discord when we were talking about how Sasuke was able to defeat him when he fended off everybody at the gate. And I feel like it was necessary to clear all of that up to get into the more strategy side of how he was able to survive. There are multiple impressive things at work here. Like I've mentioned before, he's at a disadvantage in class. Heracles is a berserker. That's perfect for him. He's at a disadvantage in territory. He's in an enclosed area, ranging up close. And he's at a disadvantage in power. So with all these different things going on, before you even get to him taking the lives, the survival in itself is nuts. One of the champions for Emia, of course, is his ability to make broken phantasms. He packs magical energy into his phantasm and it allows him to boost the rank and make it explode upon contact. When he makes his projections, since they're just imitations, the weapon is automatically degraded by a rank from the start. But with this broken phantasm, he can offset this and bring it back to its original rank. The problem with that is in order for him to do this, he would have to be dishing out a crazy amount of magical energy because he's summoning multiple A rank weapons. They get degraded to B rank and then he uses his move to bring them back up to A rank. That's a lot of work before the fighting. But nevertheless, we can see that from the adaptation, this was at least a part of his game plan as we see him opting for using his bow in some portions of the scenes. So he wasn't afraid to do it. It was just a matter of time. One of the ways that we saw Emia take him down that was actually shown was his over edge technique. And this was really interesting in its own right because originally Kansho and Bakia are only C rank weapons. So people might wonder, how was he able to do this? The initial ability of Kansho and Bakia, at least one of them, is that it increases the rank and the noble phantasm level when they're wielded together. So right there they go from C rank to B rank. And while it's left up to speculation what changes go down in his overedge form, it's fair to say that the very fact he was able to take Heracles down means that they bump up to at least an A rank. Yeah. This is likely his broken phantasm at play also. So that's one life and really clever on his part. And another thing that Kansho and Bakia can do is that it increases his magic and his physical resistance. So in the event that he does take a hit from Heracles, it won't be as bad just because he's wielding the swords. You got his triple crane technique that we saw Shiro use against Salter, where Emia uses multiple sets of his Kansho and Bakia to trick the enemy and then appear in their blind spot and dices through them that way. This could be the life where he went for the heart. You got Nine Lives Blade Works, where Emia can reproduce his own version of somebody else's phantasm, with his projection of course, that even Shiro was able to use to take down Heracles. And the only reason he was able to do this is because he he had Emiya's arm. So naturally, this would be available to him as well. Another thing to point out is that he's much more likely to use this because now he's more familiar with Heracles' fighting style. So this would be a life where he completely dices Heracles' body into pieces. Again, completely different kill. It had to be a tough battle for Emia. If you remember when Gil was fighting against him, when Gil tried to use something lower than the A rank, they bounced off his body like potato chips. They did absolutely nothing. So Emia couldn't even stall with the low ranking weapon. He would only be wasting his time and his energy. He had to be constantly remapping the situation with his eye of the mind. You got O Thunder Snow Shiro. Shiro was using Emiya's card. So anything that Shiro did, Emia is able to produce as well. You have the bomb explosion that Shiro was able to nick.
Is it that simple? I understand that cards and servants are completely different, and right in this universe, you use cards rather to channel the powers of the servant in the card rather than like to have the actual servant. But are the abilities 1-to-1, or do the cards give off a different skill compared to the regular servant?
With Kansho and Bakia by weaving it into Shinji when he had his card. That's another option. Again, completely different depth. It's an explosion and technically a more spell-based attack. Now, I know a lot of people opt for the theory of him constantly using his broken phantasm, but the thing is,
those
his
drums
broken
are so fucking ugly. What the hell is up with these drums? They look like freaking rice hats. They look like straw hats, bro. That hi-hat looks so ugly, bro. Why is it like that?
Constantly using his broken phantasm, but the thing is, his broken phantasm has a lot of impact. Going back to the shot that he did in UB-Dub where he intercepted Heracles while he was fighting against Saber. Just remember the explosion that created. They never left the Ironsburn castle. If you remember the fight in the novel, it shows him in the castle when it started and in the castle when it finished. And the same thing happened in the adaptation. At the very best, they went outside on the castle balcony, but that's as far as that goes. So there's no way that Emia could realistically use his broken phantasm in the same building without harming himself. That's why it would be a bad idea. And that's why I feel like he was trying not to do that. So while using broken phantasms is a good idea physically for something like his overedge, using it for his range, especially considering how closed in he is, that's a kamikaze mission. Same thing when he was fighting against Ku in FGO. The area of effect on this attack is just too great unless he's minimizing it. Even the bomb that Shiro weaved against Shinji wasn't nearly as bad. And that's why I feel like it's much more likely that he's going for a decapitation. When he projected Calibur on the skyscraper, Fergus's phantasm, it's an A rank. Same scenes that I mentioned before. It goes down to B, he brings it back up. Many people don't know, in the anime, Heracles was nerfed. When Emia shot this in the anime,
when isn't he nerfed? Bro is nerfed in every version, bro.
Made it seem as if it took one of Heracles' lives. When in the story, in the anime, Heracles was nerfed. When Emia shot this in the anime, it made it seem as if it took one of Heracles' lives. When in the story, Heracles flat out ate this shot. So even if Emia
are we talking about the cattle bug that happened in UBW episode 3? I mean, if that's the case, then I'm pretty sure Berserker did tank it. I don't think he took a life. I don't think he took a life.
Back up to A rank and use
even if he did take a life, then he could have just regenerated later. But if he did that and he also did other things, okay.
A broken phantasm doesn't guarantee a kill. It just guarantees an opportunity for a kill. And if that wasn't bad enough, he's got to reserve his magical energy to even last the rest of the fight. In my head, he's using his independent action the same way that he used it in UB-Dub to remain to the end of the war and snipe Gil, and he still had his ties to Ren as a master. She just wasn't around on the backup. At least he had that going for him. No point of throwing Ro in because it would
Gilgamesh hits different after finishing Babylonia, guys.
way too long. So if I had to throw some scenarios out here, we got 1 life through his heart from Overedge,
Yep.
1 through decapitation by him sniping, 9 lives blade works, that's 3, the mini bomb explosion, that's 4, really it's more so of an implosion, and then for the last 2 lives, we'll go for the traditional stack life takedown. One of the first weapons that come to mind that he could use to do this is Excalibur. I realized that Emia himself says that he can project the weapon, but it would also be a kamikaze mission, and usually it's just not worth it. I feel like this would be the same case. Now don't get me wrong, considering the type of person Emia is, he has no problem sacrificing himself. I mean, that's the reason that he did the fight in the first place. But if he can get out the situation, I don't feel like he would do that unless it's the final option. If he's running on his last resources and he's gonna choose between using the great bulk of his energy to project Excalibur versus him bringing out unlimited blade works, he's bringing out his reality marble all day in a battle, of course. And I feel like this is further evidenced by the fact of how the final kill against Heracles was described, how it vividly pinpoints every aspect that Emia had to go through to take him down one last time, and that he put his all into it. His body was dyed red and filled with holes. There's no open gaps. Both of his legs are almost melted. There's a cut on his neck. His arm is barely hanging from his elbow. He slashed his shoulder to his groin. He has a huge amount of blood gushing out of his chest, and you can literally see his internal organs blown out from the outside. And this is right before Heracles regenerates the last time. Either one of 2 things happened here. Either Emia used everything that he possibly had and went all out, exhausting his energy, or he flat out used unlimited blade works on the level that Shiro did in Oath Under Snow and hit him with a massive downpour of replicas. You know,
Man, I wish they animated that. That would have been sick. Also, I'm sorry guys. Like I'm trying to follow what he's saying, but the B-roll is just so not what he's talking about that I get distracted. I'm like listening to something and I'm watching something completely different. So
the amount of blood gushing out of his chest.
So this is Heracles.
Yes, and you can.
I wonder if Nasu, when he's writing this, he was just giving out like grotesque details about the state of him after fighting Emia, or if these are like legitimate details that he, left you to figure out to how Emia was able to take him out.
Shoulder to his groin. He has a huge amount of blood gushing out of his chest, and shows a cut with how the final kill against Heracles was described, how it vividly pinpoints every aspect that Emia had to go through to take him down one last time, and that he put his all into it. His body was dyed red and filled with holes.
Wait, so are these talking about lives? First, both his legs are almost tied. Second, there's a mark on his cut. Or is this is just one condition that he has?
There's no open gaps. Both of his legs are almost melted. There's a cut on his neck. His arm is barely hanging from his elbow. He slashed his shoulder to his groin. He has a huge amount of blood gushing out of his chest, and you can literally...
I think one would assume that Unlimited Blade Works just showered him with weapons. I mean, if you have that many injuries like that, then I can't really think of anything else that would be able to do that.
See his internal organs blown out from the outside. And this is right before Heracles regenerates the last time. Either one of 2 things happened here. Either Emia used everything that he possibly had and went all out, exhausting his energy, or he flat out used unlimited blade works on the level that Shiro did in Oath Under Snow and hit him with a massive downpour of replicas. I gotta opt for UB-Dub. That's the only right way for him to go out. And really, in that moment, those 2 fights parallel, because Shiro lost to Angelica the same way. Shiro gave everything he had and he lost too. So it's almost the same thing. But it's not about the loss, it's about the work that they put in. It's rare that you see somebody lose and it still feels like a win, because they weren't supposed to make it that far. Heracles
is literally Archer Emiya's entire character. The fact that he made it that far is a victory in itself.
A top servant. Most people will be lucky to even take a life from him, let alone half his lives from him. Getting past his Godhand, you gotta deal with battle continuation and then some. And that's why when the fight was over, you got Ilya coming out and she's furious. She's like, were you joking around? Cause he took half of your lives. Were you not fighting serious? And the monologue straight up tells us Heracles himself thinks, I don't know who that dude is, but he's really like that. Easily one of his greatest feats, easily one of the greatest moments in Stay Night. Gotta get a man his credit.
I agree. I think that was probably the one fight, apart from Saber and versus Gilgamesh and Ku versus Gilgamesh. Those are the other fights I wanted to see. But this fight also was one I really wanted to see of Archer versus Heracles. I mean, what fight? Most of it was skipped out. But I really like the theorizing here. I mean, if there's anyone who's the best at theorizing, Tsiah would be one of the best, to be honest. Yeah, I do agree like that the only real way to put him down in terms of what Archer Emia can do would be Unlimited Blade Works. I don't think anyone else. I don't think anything else could like kill as succinctly and as consistently as UBW. But yeah. Let's see the comments on here. How? Because he's Emia. I really think this is a legitimate reason. I legitimately think this is the legitimate reason. You can't really see here but let me see if I can zoom in. I'm not talking about that one. Look at the comments here. It says how? Because he's Emia. Honestly, if that was the reason why Nasu wrote that Emia was able to take out 6 lives of Heracles because he wanted to make him, I would not blame you. It most likely is, to be honest. I feel like the theorizing was more in-depth than Nasu actually writing this part. But hey, I could be completely wrong, and maybe he actually did think about all this. I mean, either way, it was a nice part of the story, to be honest. Honestly, I think he could have taken all 12 had he gotten proper support. Unlimited Blade Works is cracked. It is very cracked, extremely cracked. This fight, Gilgamesh, the main reasons why I want a ufotable fate. I read out the petition. We've all been saying that. Emia has always had the capacity to take on pretty much any servant and hold his own well. The problem is he has a UBW is a noble phantasm that is tailor-made to fight against Gilgamesh and his Gates of Babylon. But like it's broken enough to where you could use it in a lot of fights and they would still UBW would still be very helpful. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. So even though it's made to beat Gilgamesh, you could use it to fight a whole lot of other people. With these feats, I have no idea how there are Emia down players there. Like he's not the strongest in terms of raw power and Unga Bunga fighting ability, but the time and time again he proves that he can contend with him in an abstract way that's unique to him. That's why I like him. That's why I like Emia as a servant, because he has to. You got to use wits. You got to use like strategy. You have to understand your opponent. You have to find your weaknesses in your opponent. You have to be able to take advantage of those weaknesses. Right? Because if you just go 1-to-1 Unga Bunga fight, you're gonna lose. It reminds me a lot of Guts from Berserk, right? I'm currently reading Berserk manga, and I love how Guts fights. The fact that he's, as a regular human, is fighting all these supernatural beings, all these supernatural deities, right? And they're all stronger than him, but he has to like make do with what he has. He has to strategize. He has to figure out what are their weak points, what are their flaws in their fighting ability, and he has to take advantage of that while being a badass, right? So if, in that case, I actually kind of see like some parallels between how Guts fights and how Emia fights, because it's like a very strategic underdog way of fighting, you know what I'm saying? But I digress. I'm yapping, you guys. Anyways, I think this is a really good video. I'll leave a link at the top of the description as always. Thank you guys so much for watching. I had such a great time. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.